Wisdom and knowledge starts in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm Mark. He's Gordon. And this is Wisdom and Knowledge. And we welcome Libby to the podcast. She goes by the name of Lady Liberty Libby on socials. We'll post the links below. Welcome to the podcast, Libby.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm really, really glad that I get to be here and talk to you guys.
We are just thrilled. Gordon, start this thing out.
Well, Libby, before we did this podcast, you invited Mark and I to watch a video that you put out on transhumanism, sometimes referred to as biodigital convergence.
Right.
And I think most people watching this podcast will be familiar with certain terms. If we say Great Reset, they'll know. If we say Agenda 2030, UN Agenda 2030, they will know. The SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals. A lot of us know about this stuff, but you hit me with something new that I wasn't familiar with, and I imagine there are others. And it's Agenda 2045.
Right.
And
yes.
I would like to hear you talk about Agenda 2045 and the mapped out direction that the architects of this agenda have envisioned for us. So take it away.
Okay, so I first feel like I always feel like I have to preface anything I say with, which is this almost like a disclaimer. I got to Agenda 2045 the first time I ever came across it. It was just during kind of what I called regular research. And that was in early 2022. I found what is a promotional video that was put out for 2045, for Agenda 2045, by this particular website, 2045.com. And when I found this promotional video, it's like 7 or 8 or 9 minutes or something, and I watched it, it's so kind of, it's so really sci-fi type of material that it's really difficult to believe that it's something legitimately occurring or that's going to occur. It very much sounds and feels like it's this supernatural, impossible, there's no way, far-fetched thing. And I very easily stored it away over there. I shared about it on one of my Instagram pages that's since been severely shadow banned. And I just put it away. I didn't really think much of anything of it. And fast forward to May 19th of last year of 2022, and I had what some people call a near-death experience. To make a long story short, 2.5 years of my family being broken up because of the COVID hoax. Living in Los Angeles in Southern California, which I have to touch briefly on it because I don't feel like a lot of people do enough, is how much this whole pandemic has destroyed families all over the earth. And because of the division that it's created, at least in my family, between masked and unmasked people, willing to take the shot, not willing to take the shot, basically playing the game, not playing the game. And my husband and I very quickly did not play the game. To make a long story short, my 2 older daughters decided to move in with their father. I found myself after 2.5 years, we both did, very depressed, very isolated from our blood relatives and any friends that we had. It was myself, my husband, and our now 6-year-old son. So this was 3 years ago. He wasn't even 3. And 2.5 years, I feel like, of severe depression, grieving, truly as a mother, the loss of my daughters in a lot of ways, just present in our life and our family, and a lot of anxiety. And really, you cannot go down rabbit hole after rabbit hole after rabbit hole and find out all these truths and awaken the way that I have, at least, without, some people call it like a dark night of the soul. I died May 19th, and I died several times that night. And it was basically a culmination of what ended up being a grand mal benzo withdrawal-induced seizure and an SVT heart attack May 19th of 2022. I ended up on Xanax several months prior to that, which I could go backwards, but ultimately I had pneumonia, and then I ended up on Xanax, and one thing after another, I found myself really sick. But I was sick spiritually. I was sick mentally. I was sick emotionally. I was sick physically, of course. I was living in Los Angeles and I was fighting all of this demonic insanity every way that I knew how, which is how everyone on our side has known to do it. I made the emails. I sent the emails. I made phone calls. I showed up to board meetings. My profile picture on social media is a picture of me in all black with sunglasses on with the yellow paper Star David that says, I do not comply. That's what I wore when I went to board meetings or anytime I spoke in public. I kind of just donned this costume because I felt like growing up Jewish and coming to Jesus at 17 and growing up in Los Angeles and just all the things that have made me me, right? When I watched everything that was going on and in my family and in my home and how I was watching it unfold, I'm not one to sit down and be quiet. I'm too loud. I'm too strong. So thank God, God saw fit to give me a husband who can help me to not be that way at home. I can be that way out there. And I found myself really quickly depressed and angry and anxious and on Xanax to try and relax and to be able to breathe because of the pneumonia. And eventually I ended up having a seizure and a heart attack May 19th. And to make a long story short, when I came back, as I say, I woke up in the hospital in the emergency room and my nurse's name was Adam. And I don't feel like that was a coincidence at all with what I went through that night. My biggest memory from May 19th from last year was May 19th, was the night and the 2, 3, 4 hours between when I initially must have had either the heart attack or the seizure and lost consciousness to when I woke up in the hospital. I remember that night, that period of time. But what I recall is what led me to finding Agenda 2045 and all the connections I've made to it since then. So that's why I bring that up, because instead of just going backwards, I'd rather just start, and let you know how I got here now. So I found notepads of me doodling 2045 not that long ago, that first month when I was recovering from the seizure. And I had a massive seizure and heart attack and stuff, and they stopped my heart. Right? And what I saw and what I experienced, some people like to call a near-death experience. I was outside heaven. I was in the garden and I saw Jesus, but he didn't speak. I spoke to God and I heard God. And what I saw was not just what's I've read described in the Bible, the castle, that the place that Jesus is preparing for us when he said he would before he left. I very much believe, and I bring that up because I believe very much that every single thing that's occurring today is part of Bible prophecy in some way. In some way or another, it's all leading to the accumulation of the Antichrist, the rise of the Antichrist. The digital beast system is what I call part of Agenda 2045. And, some people will call it the days of Noah and things. I really feel like that's where we're heading. And I feel like they're using Agenda 2045 as their outline, like their blueprint to bring about what they truly believe, transhumanists believe, is like their God. Like this is what they serve. This is what they want to create. They hate God. They hate anything created in the image of God. That's me and you. The whole trans agenda that they're pushing on children is to prepare everybody, in my honest opinion, with all the research I've done and with what I've experienced spiritually, to prepare humanity for transhumans. Transhumans are going to be this bioconvergence of humans, biological flesh merged with technology. And it's to some degree, like Elon Musk has said, we already are part cyborgs. He said that, right? What he means is that we all have a cell phone. So the majority of humans have a cell phone. Then there's humans that have had prosthetics, implanted into their bodies to help them walk, to help them see, to help them hear, right? My husband's one of those people. He has prosthetic hearing bones. He's not a cyborg, but he has prosthetic hearing bones. That's partially due to technology. So there's a thin line that humanity is crossing right now when it comes to using something like technology to help us continue to hear or see or use our arms or legs, to becoming something that is no longer human and made in the image of God. And that's what I personally feel like is their ultimate goal when it comes to the transgenderism, or whatever people call it, the removal of human biological sex. Ultimately, what distinguishes a female from a male human is being removed. Well, when you start to study transhumanism, which is rooted in eugenics, which is rooted in Satanism, I start to see that it's very clear what they're doing. They're using the Talmud. I don't know if I'm saying it right in English because I speak Hebrew, but there's a book called the Talmud. And the Talmud is a book that was written by a bunch of rabbis, Pharisees, a long time ago. And it's basically rabbinical teachings that some people will call Kabbalism. And it's not that different than what Khazarian Jews believe and worship. And that's what Soros and Gates and Rockefeller and Rothschild and Kissinger and all these names that you hear that sound Jewish, that's where they originate from, that their bloodline traces back to Khazarian Jews. And that's important. It's important because it's part of their agenda. Their goal, is to rule the world, but it's to rule the world from a very demonic place. They want complete control of humans, and they're accomplishing it. They're doing it now with the mRNA shots. They're doing it with pushing transgenderism on children and on society to make it very acceptable because they need to. The word trans, I feel like, is very much been brought into society's vocabulary to prepare them and to normalize when they say transhuman. This is a transhuman. You accept the trans community. This is part of, I don't know, maybe they add another letter or symbol, or I don't know, at the end of their thing there. But that's where I personally see it going. And like I've mentioned in the documentary that I made, it was really short, but I wanted to just put something at least together because I wasn't finding anything. And it was really frustrating to me to go through BitChute or Band Video or InfoWars or whatever red pill place and not find anything that specifically said Agenda 2045. And I've tried to contact several different, big named people that are really just essentially no different than me and you. We're all average, basic people. There's nothing special about me other than I'm very inquisitive. I have severe trust issues. And so I question everything until I see it and believe it. That's really part of why I research the way I do. And I feel like what led me to here was trying to, it started off trying to convince my daughters that mom wasn't crazy. And it turned into me dying in order to come back and realize that fighting the way that I wasn't working, and it wasn't going to. And that's one of the things I think a lot of people have a hard time hearing from me, and they get really angry, is when I tell them, this is all coming. This is everything that's happened. This is what's happening now. This is what's coming, and you can't stop it. And it has to happen because Jesus Christ has to come back. And these are kind of the steps that I see that are going to lead to his eventual return, whether that'll be in my lifetime or my son's lifetime or my grandchildren's, I don't know, but no one's supposed to know. And when people start to pinpoint dates and times very specifically with that information is when I usually run away, because I very much want to stick to what the scriptures say. So even for myself, because I've had a lot of dreams that some people will say are premonitions or prophetic in nature, but I would never call myself anything like that. I very much feel like we all have a purpose and a reason why we're alive today in this time. And maybe mine is to just come back here and warn everybody that this is what's coming and that this is what I'm going to do because it's what God told me specifically to do and how to go about doing it so that my family would survive, so that we'd survive. But what I've come to find out, especially since we moved here finally and took this leap of faith, was that the majority of the people that have come to this specific area have all been drawn here for the exact same reason. So I'm by far not the only person that has experienced this and that is taking the actions that we've decided to take as a family. There's a lot of people that God specifically is speaking to and is calling to different parts of the earth that will be safe once the financial reset begins and the fourth industrial revolution is actually
in high gear.
Yeah. I mean, once that really starts to happen, and it's getting very, very, very close. I get anxious, like in my body. I start to feel really anxious sometimes. And then I'll go walk around in the forest or something and pray and maybe look at my phone for a few minutes. And like earlier today, I really have not been on Instagram very often at all lately. I was for a while posting almost every day, sometimes twice a day. But I feel like it's slowed down a lot, and I feel like it's slowed down a lot because I already know everything that's coming. And I'm not saying that to try and sound cocky or anything. That's not the reason why. I feel like there's a lot of people that know exactly what is coming, and they either don't want to admit it, don't want to call it by name what it is. It makes me really angry sometimes because there's certain people that I follow online that have still, to say the damn words, Agenda 2045. And I don't get why for the life of me, because anything about transhumanism is not in Agenda 2030. It's nowhere in 2030. You won't find anything about transhumanism in 2030. 2030 is all about laying the framework with the 17 sustainable goals, one by one by one, for the 2045 agenda, which is all basically a digital transhuman world. Oh. And in order to do that, there's different steps they have to take. So they needed to create panic amongst everyone with COVID, with Event 201, which led to actual COVID, right? And they had to have that happen so they could test the population as a whole and see who was going to comply and who was going to, they had to kind of see what their numbers were, is how I feel. And I feel like once they saw, kind of where they were at, I mean, as it stands now, I don't know why people are surprised at the train derailments or the wildfires or whatever else is going on, because
the DuPont plant down in Louisiana blowing up.
I just saw that. Yeah. It's all going according to their plan, though. Really. It really is. So I'm not surprised. I just look for the very next thing that is supposed to come and when it may come, so I can try to maybe be ahead. Ultimately, I don't feel like I am at all. I feel like the people that are ahead are the ones that have been prepping for the last 30 years. They have an arsenal supply of food, I don't know. They have food, they've got water filtration and water storage down pat. They know how to hunt. They can feed themselves fine. They've got no problem living in the forest amongst the bugs, being eaten alive by whatever is out there biting them. They're not going to die of, a histamine overdose like I might without Benadryl. They've become accustomed to living, like what I was saying earlier on the live. They are very comfortable with being very uncomfortable and very inconvenient. And those are the people that I feel like ultimately are going to survive, are the ones that know how to fend for themselves. Everyone else with their I can't can either enter the digital beast system or die of starvation, and I don't know, what'll happen with them. But it's very clear to me. So I don't understand why there's still so much fight back and not enough creating.
I don't get it. I think I understand it to a degree. And
Okay.
for what it's worth, at least for the last 2 years, I haven't put it in as clearly defined terms as you have. But
Okay.
what I have been writing on my social media feeds and blogs and what have you, Substack, is that the ultimate end game of this agenda, the way I frame it, is that the ultimate end game is for the vast majority of humanity to be little more than the digital property of our corporate masters, with
Right.
government simply there to hold our collective leash.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that's been, now I've just
That's a
defined,
good nutshell, though. That is.
and but in terms of explaining why people, the old system, this old beastly system that we're resetting from, was very attractive. It was very,
Right.
people like their streaming shows, they like a consumer-based culture, they like the internet and social interaction over a Zoom call or other
Right.
digital medium. They enjoy the convenience of all this, and that to cut themselves off from it. And I'm guilty as charged. I've been a lifelong baseball fan. I've spent, I'm 57. I've spent, from the age of 13, 14, 15 on, being immersed in Major League Baseball. And now, for a large part, TV, haven't had it in the house for 10, 11 years. I don't even listen to the radio anymore. I've shut off as much of the programming as I can, but I still go online and I still want to know how the Blue Jays are doing. Old habits die hard, and it's been ingrained as part of my identity for 40 plus years.
I completely understand. I really, really do. Leaving California was really hard. It was extremely difficult. I don't know if it's the hardest thing I've ever done. Sometimes it feels like it is. It probably isn't. But leaving the familiarity and the comfort of where I grew up, and the beach, my ocean, my daughters, my parents, because I'm chasing a dream, literally, that God put on me, that my husband confirmed, is not average at all. That's not something that people just do. You know what I mean? And we didn't just do it either. We didn't. When we took a trip, we rented an RV and we took a trip across the country in the summer of 2020. And everything in California was shut down. Everything was closed. I mean, they gated the beach.
Yeah, you have Governor Mussolini.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really hard to see all of that. It was insane. I've never seen, I mean, miles upon miles upon miles of PCH was fenced. I couldn't have videotaped myself while I was driving. I cried thinking about it while I was driving a PCH, because there was nowhere to go. And to see them try and take that away, when I saw a bunch of people trying to climb the fence to get to the ocean, I didn't even think twice. So I feel like they very much knew what they were doing. They knew. It's when I tell people, this is mental. This isn't just spiritual. It's physical, it's mental, it's all of it. If you can't find the inner strength with God, in my opinion, to fight this the way that will feed your children and yourself, you're going to exhaust yourself to death like I did. That would be my warning to anybody who listens, moms and dads especially. You are going to fight yourself until you are dead if you keep fighting against a bull system like what I fought in LA. There's nowhere to go. They're not going to listen. They don't care if you are screaming, if you are yelling, if you are crying, if you are begging, if you are pleading. If you get 5 minutes, 2 minutes, 30 seconds, It doesn't matter how much evidence you give them. It doesn't matter what supporting documents you have. It doesn't matter. These people do not care.
Anthony Fauci and Tedros and goodness knows who else in Canada, Theresa Tam, they could all come out now at this point and admit.
Yeah.
And still individuals would say, well, they've been co-opted, they've gone off their rockers collectively.
Right. I mean, I've struggled a lot over the last, I don't know, maybe 6 months to some degree, I put out some information that really bothered people about Donald Trump. And my thing has always been and always will be, the truth is the truth is the truth. How you feel about the truth and what you want the truth to be, I'm so sorry, doesn't fucking matter.
No.
It doesn't matter.
Well, one thing I wanted to tell you, because I lived in Phoenix at the time. I went from LA to, I was in Vegas for a year, and then I went to Phoenix, and I was there until the March of this year. And I drove 5 hours to Huntington Beach, California, because I lived in LA from like 2007 to 2017. Because Huntington Beach had a World Freedom Rally. You know, when they had those World Freedom rallies.
Yeah,
guess what it was? You were there.
I lived in Huntington Beach so I was in Huntington Beach in 2021 and 2022. I had the heart attack in a 2-bedroom apartment that we lived at 10 minutes away from the beach. Loved that place. And then we moved to Castaic after we downgraded.
Oh, yeah, I know Castaic well, yeah.
So I was at a lot of the rallies that they did right there at
But this one was a Trump rally. There was nothing else there, just a Trump rally. I was fumed. And the same thing about Phoenix. Phoenix would have, you know, these rallies with Children's Health Defense. And it was all Trump rallies. And I'm like, Arizona was so politically driven. And I was like, I got to get out of here. You know, it was insane. You can't trust in politicians, you know?
No, I don't know why anybody does. I mean, I'll say,
thank you.
In everyone else's defense and my own given, just so that people that love Trump try and understand where I'm coming from. I'm not attacking them at all. No. I wore Trump gear in LA. I walked around Los Angeles, Hollywood, Santa Monica with my son in Trump gear with all of the things. Okay. I mean, I very much wanted to believe and follow that this person was going to magically somehow help us all. I really did. And when he came out with Operation Warp Speed and kept pushing and talking about, I automatically was, there's something wrong here, because what nobody kind of knew, you know, was for me years prior, my first awakening was the vaccines I'd given our son. That was my first awakening. Had nothing to do with COVID. My first awakening as a mom was watching my 1-year-old son wake up from his MMR shot that was supposed to save his life. Half dead is what it looked like to me. He had 103.7 degree fever. His face was purple. His arms were balled up like this. And you better believe that being the mom I am, I went into the pediatrician's office after a few hours and was like, demanded the list, the insert for the shot they gave him. I had to have security accompany me so I could get that information from them. And when I took it home and dissected the pamphlet and the ingredients, I mean, the shock to my system as a mom, because I'd given all my kids vaccines. All my daughters were vaccinated. I went through the CDC vaccination. I mean, I did it all. And so to watch what was happening to my son and then to see what the ingredients were that they put in him was beyond shocking to me. I felt like this small. I felt so dumb because there were so many women, so many times that God tried to send somebody. Said, I don't know if you know the metaphor with the guy on the boat in the middle of the ocean. He's praying to God for help, and God keeps sending different things to help him. And he keeps saying, no, it's okay. God will save me. I don't need your boat or your airplane. And that's how I felt in retrospect when I saw what had happened with our son. And luckily, though, I caught it when I did, and I showed it to my husband so we could stop injecting him with their poisons, you know. And so I tell people now, when some people randomly message me and say, you know, what do you think of this vaccine and that vaccine, this RSV thing and this, that, whatever. And all I can really tell them is I hope that you research into what the ingredients are before you put anything into your body, or especially into your child's body. Because my experience has been that every single quote vaccine that's on their list is loaded with heavy metals and chemicals and dead stem cells that should not be in a human being. So we've decided for our son, we're good on all that. I'm going to go the natural way. And so help me God, if I'm supposed to just die in a year, I'll just be dead. Same thing for everybody. I don't understand the people that are really.
We live in a faithless time. We live in a post-Christian era. We live in a post-truth era.
Yeah.
And so it's difficult to explain to people matters of faith and matters of truth.
Right.
And the Bible has been trashed and thrown away.
Yeah.
And truth is based on your subjective feelings. Well, I don't feel like a man today. I feel like a woman. And now
Right.
my subjective feeling is somehow supposed to trump, sorry to use that word, is supposed to trump objective reality.
I mean, I would argue with them that feelings aren't facts because they change constantly. And so I might feel sad one second and then feel happy the next, and then feel angry and depressed. And welcome to being human. We have emotions. And as much as I'm emotionally driven because I'm a woman, and I have no problem admitting that I'm a woman, I do not come from a logical, rational place. I come from an emotional heart place. That's where I'm centered from. That's where I operate from, is my intuition and this here. And I need my husband because he thinks he operates from this. And so hopefully the sexes can come here and meet here and then help each other. But I feel very, very much that when it comes to, you know, like Agenda 2045 and transhumanism, it's not up to belief. It's not up to even how you feel. This is what they're doing. And I've proved it beyond a shadow of a doubt with just my own little research. So finding anything extra for me at this point has just been validating. But at the same time, I feel like, okay, so now what are you going to do about it though? But hardly anybody even mentions Agenda 2045, like you said. So when you have people, if I could name some people real quick, you could edit it out if you want, but that I really respect, I really admire, I like their work, I follow their work online, be it Stu Peters, Karen Kingston, Tyler Duncan. There's a lot of different people that I follow online that I feel like are really great. My question for some time, Maria Z is another person that I contacted to see, can you please watch my little documentary over here? I know I'm just, American mom, but can you just watch this? Because I feel like it's the missing link in a lot of ways that a lot of people haven't come across, or they came across and didn't take it seriously. Or how could you not know this? I mean, I watch people sometimes like Charlie Kirk or Tucker Carlson. I'm really confused as to how they've never mentioned anything that has to do with Agenda 2045. The most I'll get from any of those people is transhumanism. That's the most I'll hear, is just the word transhumanism. But then people often want to know, where did you get that from? Where is that coming from? And I don't know why it's so hard for people to accept as being legitimate. It very much is. The 2045 website also has several different sister websites. So you can go to, I think one of them is 2045 G6 or something. I'll have to find it and send it to you. But there's several different sister sites. And when I look just through that site, because I've had people tell me, well, they haven't updated that site in a long time. So if you go to it and you click on different articles and things, right? some of the articles are as old as 2012 and haven't been updated in a long time. I'm like, okay, but if you look at the manifesto, just look at the manifesto, look at the blueprint of what they're doing, because their blueprint specifically says right there that what they're looking to create is an avatar body. An avatar body, what is that? It's a body very much, in my opinion, it's not, I don't think it's a coincidence. They tell us what they're going to do. They always very much do. And the movie Avatar is the first thing that came to my mind. And when I looked at it again, I thought, you got to be kidding me that it's right there, right there. Because the Avatar movie was exactly what I feel like they're kind of going to try and do. In that way, no. But in the sense of, if you die here, we can take your brain and we can plug it into this avatar body that can be bigger than your human body, stronger than your human body, never die like your human body will. You'll have super abilities. You could see better. I would love to see better. I don't want corneal transplants. I've actually been offered a contact lens. I posted about it on my Instagram. It's a cyborg lens. It would give me the best eyesight. I'd have robotic eyesight. I would literally be able to see a distance that the normal human eye cannot see and will never be able to see. But it wouldn't just be like a corneal transplant. It wouldn't just be an organ transplant. It would be adding a mechanical feature, a technological feature that would be connected to my brain, to my biology. And without it, I would cease to see. And that's the part of me that feels like this is the thin line that they're crossing in what they're doing with transhumanism. Because there's not a lot of people that want to say that the mRNA shots that they're creating and that they have with the COVID-19 shots are graphene oxide filled shots. There's a few people that have mentioned it, that the fibers, the blood clots that are coming out of people, right? There was a Died Suddenly documentary that Stu Peters did. I watched it. Yes. And when I watched it and I saw those clots, first thing I said to my husband is, those aren't clots. Those aren't clots. That's not what a blood clot looks like. They even tell you in the document, this isn't a blood clot I've ever seen. None of the doctors, they're all, I've never seen this. This isn't how the blood clots. It looks more like fibrous tissue. Right. That these long, wormy looking, grotesque things. And the first thing I intuitively felt like it is artificial intelligent nanotechnology made of graphene oxide. And it's being powered by the 5G frequency towers that they've installed all over the earth when they locked us in 2020. But once they turn on the 6G, when they upgrade the towers to 6G frequencies, is when the real fun is going to occur. Because that's when I feel like we're going to not just see people collapsing and dying. We're going to see people that are mutating. And they're mutating into superpowers and all sorts of things that humanity has never seen before. Just like the Bible says. There's not... Yeah.
There's a book by Dean Koontz that was published in 1989 called Midnight.
I know that author, but I haven't heard that book.
And it's one of his more obscure little titles. And it's about the city of Moonlit Cove, Washington State, and a tech billionaire who's created a company, and they are transforming everyone who lives in the town, this small little company town, through a series of injections. And the injections turn them into what is referred to as the new people.
So there's Human 2.0, and Human 2.0 is listed on the 2045 website. And it's not just on the 2045 website.
I have a question. Now, you mentioned this site, 2045.com. That's the digits, 2045.com.
Correct.
Have you checked a who is or a who search, an ICANN search, to see who's the owner of that website, who's putting it out?
I believe it's Dimitri Istan, possible, but I'm not 100% sure. But
That's
I'm pretty sure he's the founder of 2045. And by founder, I mean he's the one that has spent the money.
Okay.
He's the producer. He's the one that is funding, that mainly funded the 2045 manifesto and agenda. So what that website basically is him and his idea so that's what the manifesto is. When you click on the website and you go into different, parts of it, it'll say the 2045 manifesto. And when you can read through it and you can watch it. They have, like I mentioned, a video, right? And their video takes you through what they want to accomplish and why. And so they say that humanity has reached kind of the precipice. There's all these different things that are wrong with humanity, and we're killing the earth, and there's this and there's that. And so the solution to it all is for us to evolve. And we need to evolve with technology, like Elon Musk is creating with his Neuralink. Yeah. And what we need to do is not just evolve with technology, but we need to get to a place where we don't die anymore. And we can achieve this through transhumanism, through the implantation of technology, right? So so even people that think that's far-fetched and crazy, I'm like, okay, let's just put that over there for a second, now that we know it's there. Now let's go over here to what, the world knows. The World Economic Forum. Let's go there for a second, because so many people just love that thing and they want to get all their, okay, so let's go there and see what they say. So, okay, on the World Economic Forum's page, currently right now, air pollution, coincidentally, is listed as their number one biggest threat to the world is air pollution. And that's been there for a number of years, by the way. It's not like a brand new, just happened this year. This has been at least a year or two. I forget exactly what year that particular air pollution article was posted. It could have been 2020 or 2021, but don't quote me. And but I have it somewhere. And so they have that listed there. They also have a whole big section about the fourth industrial revolution. And if you read what the fourth industrial revolution is, and then you read what the financial reset is, what I feel like I've been gifted with is discernment, very strong discernment. I see very clearly what most people see way back. It's like dug, almost like there's a film on it for everybody else that they have to kind of wipe off to see the clear picture that's underneath it all. I don't know how else to explain it. And so when I looked at the World Economic Forum's website, this was, over the last year or so, I went and searched very deeply through their fourth industrial revolution little tab there. And when you go through there, what you will find, which I've posted videos about, is what Schwab talks about, the need to microchip children, right? And why we would need to microchip children. Okay, so with my Patreon right now, I have a few Patreons, and one of my Patreons asked me to research into the Sound of Freedom movement, where it came from, who funded it, this and that, and all these things. So I started doing some of that. I already knew a lot of the reasons why, just intuitively even. But I decided to look and see, because I know some people want to see the actual proof and connections of things, right? So I started digging into it, and I wasn't really surprised by finding out that Disney owned it, but Disney didn't want to release it, although they were going to release it in 2020, but they had it for over 5 years before even 2020. And prior to that, who created it and why they created it, and then who Tim Ballard was, or who we think he was, or who he might be, and all this speculation and all this confusion about just even looking through the information. I thought there's a reason why so much of this is so confusing. There's a reason. And ultimately, for me, just as even a researcher, I felt like it doesn't really matter, because the problem exists, and the problem has existed for eons, and it'll continue to exist because it's something that's existed since biblical times. Unfortunately, there's always been, like I was saying earlier today, there's always been sexual immorality. There has always been just things that were indecent and demonic. There's been pedophilia, there's been incest, there's been all of this bestiality, all of the stuff that now kind of is more in our faces with transgenderism has always been there. But now it's kind of being pushed more and more in front of people And although I think it's great for people to be more aware, just the average person to be more aware that children are being sold into sex slavery and what have you, it still doesn't provide any kind of solution. And unfortunately, the only solution that I see that they will push will be microchipping your children. And so ultimately, that's really where, when I look at the World Economic Forum's website and I started looking at some of the donors and funders for the movie, I even thought, I'm not really interested in anyone knocking on my door tomorrow. I don't really feel like having to deal with authority. I don't like authorities. So I already know why they did all this. It's pretty obvious to me that they're going to come up with a solution. The solution's going to be across the board. We can just microchip your kids and then we know exactly where they are. And if you don't want to put a microchip in your kids, that's okay. Don't worry about it. We could put a wearable device on them until you're okay with it and then stick it in them. You know, or when Johnny's 18, we could upgrade it or do this or do that. And if you don't think that's where it's going, then I urge you to look at the World Economic Forum's website and go under their Fourth Industrial Revolution tab, because they lay it out right there why they should microchip children. And it's ridiculous, really, because they talk about the most absurd thing as an adult, right? But for a child, the idea of being a Superman and being a superhero and having superpowers like all of their superheroes is very appealing to a 6-year-old or a 10-year-old that's raised, especially in an environment, in a culture, in a society where that's pushed in your face, right? Like my son is in a different environment because he's got weird parents. So we don't watch a lot of that stuff because I don't want to push that propaganda onto my kid. And I feel like it will. It may seem innocent and okay, but I would beg parents to do their due diligence and really keep in mind that what you're exposing your children to, which you're allowing your children to be exposed to, children, young, they are moldable, they're impressionable. It will shape their beliefs. It will shape their egos, their pride, how they see themselves in the world and their desires. And I will tell you that my son is more interested in farming and in growing stuff and having chickens than I think the average 6-year-old that just came out of LA is. And I feel like it has a lot to do with the fact that the last 3 years that we were there, especially, we sheltered him. I sheltered him as much as I possibly could because I felt like people will often say they're coming for your kids, but then they just ended at that. They're coming for the kids. They are. So what are you going to do? Are you going to stay in the main cities and fight to keep the main cities functional? Or are you going to make the decision to be very inconvenienced, be very uncomfortable, and downgrade perhaps your lifestyle so that you can start to create something that's yours, right? I want my son to grow up and know how to feed himself, like completely. Right. I want him to know how to hunt and gather his food. I don't want him to feel like his only option is to enter a digital beast system, which by the time he's grown, if we haven't been raptured yet, will fully be in place. I don't feel like it's going to be that much longer at all until they like really pull the strings and, you know, push it all in. And I feel like it's going to happen. It's going to coincide. There's going to be the climate lockdown and there's going to be the financial reset, very close, if not at the same time or overlapping somehow, because that'll be their solution. I feel like I feel like the climate lockdown, the solution to it will be the financial reset.
I want to kind of bring this back a bit to something you were talking about earlier. You were talking about Trump and your opinions on him and everything. And I'll just, something I throw out there all the time is that anyone who thinks Trump's going to send everything crashing down, or in Canada, Pierre Poilievre, or anyone who's looking to whoever,
RFK Jr., you name it.
Yeah, anyone thinking that some individual of this earth is going to send everything crashing down is, the Bible tells us there will be false Christs, false messiahs, false prophets, and everyone's attaching themselves to things of this earth. And there's only one thing that's going to save us. And that's we need to build our ark, and the ark is our relationship with Jesus Christ.
Yes, yes, very much, yes.
But getting back then to you were talking about the division that's caused within your own family, between your daughters, between other relatives, and Christianity, Jesus Christ, we've been programmed to disregard it. We got the Ned Flanders, we got Jimmy Swaggart, we got Jim Baker, we have all these false prophets.
Yeah.
Joel Osteen, throw all the names out there.
Yeah, yeah.
And what does it say in Matthew? And I looked this up while we were talking.
Yeah.
Matthew 10:34. Do not think that I have come to send peace upon the earth, but I have come to bring a sword. And there is this division that we're experiencing that I've had as well.
Yeah, it is why people have, I feel like there's parts of the Bible that people just have completely forgotten.
Yeah.
They don't even hear it anymore.
No,
Honestly.
not at all.
What was that?
I said people don't even hear it anymore. If you're under the age of 40, the Bible, prayer has been taken out of the public school system. So if you're not going to a parochial school that is Christian based, you're not even going to hear the Bible.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, we tend to think, individuals like myself, yourself, Mark, we go to church, we like to think, recency bias. We've just seen a bunch of people at church. Everyone knows this stuff. The broader culture, we are removed from it. I talk to young people all the time, and I just invited a young girl I work with. She's 19 or so. I'm like, you've never been to church? No, never, not once.
I mean, I just started going to church again about 6 weeks ago when we moved here.
Mm-hmm.
Prior to that, I had not really been part of the church in over 20 years.
So many were complying, at least in the US, where I was.
Say that?
So many people, so many churches were complying.
Yes.
You know, bowing down to the government. I was like, no.
Yeah.
You know, and even one that I went to in Phoenix that was standing up, there was like division, and I couldn't explain. I mean, they were meeting in the park to begin with, which nothing wrong with that. But it just, you know, I don't know. You know, I can't explain it.
Yeah, I went to a couple of churches when I was in Huntington Beach, and I was really disappointed because I felt like if this place isn't safe to talk about what's actually going on without being judged or ridiculed, then how am I supposed to find my people? I went through a really hard time. It was right before I had the seizure and the heart attack. And
well, I urge people to get into their Bibles, because you have the opening of the book of Revelation where Jesus is talking to the 7 churches of Ephesus, that's, you know, all these different churches. And he has a message for each church.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
And these messages teach a Christian how to discern.
Right.
And no church is going to be perfect.
Right. No, of course not.
But you need to, and unless you're in the Word, you're not going to necessarily be able to discern well.
That's completely true. There's also churches that just don't want to touch on a subject because there's so much false doctrine attached to it. And so I understand. I actually made the decision to go to our pastor a month after we started going there. I prayed about it a lot. And then one particular weekend, I had been dreaming some things again, like over and over again. And then I suddenly saw a headline that was exactly what I had been dreaming about for the first, and I just freaked me out. I just thought, I remember crying. I was really upset. And I told my husband, sometimes I don't understand what the point of this is.
Well, I find it hard to believe that you have 2 adult children, because because you don't look that old.
Not at all.
I'm old, but I'm old enough to have 2 adult children. I promise you that.
The Bible also says that young people will have visions and the old will have dreams. And I've been having dreams as well. And so I say, well, it's obvious I'm old because I'm not getting visions, I'm having dreams. The little bad attempt at humor.
Yeah. No, I mean, I talked with our pastor and I actually shared my little documentary with him, and I was really nervous about doing so because I still have this fear of being judged as like a crazy person. And I'm in small little Bible Belt town America. I'm not in, that's basically where I am. And so his response was really made me really sad, but at the same time I felt like, of course, I sent it to him and I talked to him about it for a while. I sat and talked in his office. I told him about the experience I had last year. And really, I was looking for help. I was looking for guidance. I asked him, I feel like I need to go back and tell him. So I need to just be clear, like, what should I be reading in the Bible? Or how can you direct me or guide me? Because it's not easy sometimes to feel like I relate to Noah. What is this? I'm like, what is this? This is bizarre. I feel like Noah sometimes. People looking at me like I'm crazy. And I'm like, hey, the big metallic, scary monsters are coming and you can't stop them. So go raise chickens, leave the city and go start a private community and a private homestead. When I came back from that experience last year, one of the things that I kept saying over and over again so in Israel, there's a term, they call them kibbutz.
Kibbutz. Yeah.
You know what kibbutz is? So it's a small little village, basically.
Self-sustaining, typically.
Yes. Completely self-sustaining, completely self-sufficient. They have a farm, they have animals, they have vegetation. Most of them have like a community, kitchen or dining room or whatever. If you want to be there, you can. If not, you've got your own place to live at. But the main thing about a kibbutz and how it functions and works is everyone contributes. Yes. Everybody works. Everybody has a job. Everyone also knows how to do every other job. So if you get sick and you take care of chickens, I know how to take care of the chickens because you taught me how to do it. Right. And vice versa, right? So I know about medicine. I've taught you medicine. So you now know how to diagnose whoever with whatever and what to give them, right? Because now I'm not feeling good. So that's how those, towns, communities, whatever function. And when I came back from that experience, my husband's back. I think we're getting ready for dinner soon. One of the things that I had said was the only thing that's going to survive is a kibbutz. I would like mumble 2045 and be like, kibbutz, we need to create a kibbutz. That's what God said. My husband would be like, what are you talking about? And so finally, as I was able to start articulating more because my brain was just recovering from the seizure, yes. And cognitively, I just was having problems trying to articulate and explain myself. I finally was able to tell him the only thing that's going to survive.
Or the Amish.
Or the Amish. The Amish know too, yeah. The Amish, very much, yeah. They're the closest ones. I mentioned them earlier today in my live too, when I was talking with that girl Daisy, because you know why? Because they know how to take care of themselves, and they don't need anybody else to take care of themselves, and that's something that I feel like 98 at least % of humanity, including myself, has completely distanced themselves from. So God forbid we should be inconvenienced or we should be uncomfortable. We can't handle it. So, and also there's I need it right now. So I'm hungry. I have to go to the store right now and I have to get food right now. God forbid I have to raise something and then, or grow something and then harvest it or slaughter it and I'm like, this is what people have been doing for centuries before we had all the convenience that we do now. So yeah, I think we have to wrap it up a little bit.
This is fine. We really appreciate you coming on. And one thing I just wanted to add at the end is one of the articles in your video was from Ray Kurzweil. I knew somebody, I knew a photographer who was sitting, this is like maybe 10, 15 years ago, maybe even 20 years ago, in a Google Zeitgeist meeting, shooting it. And Ray Kurzweil is breaking this down. He's been talking about this for years.
A long time. The technical singularity is coming. It is coming. It is upon us any minute now.
Yeah.
It's not going to be very long. I mean, I know that they have the year 2045. I did a few different, just small little clips on Instagram, but I put this in the documentary that I did because I felt like it was very important for people to understand and to know this, at least, because people ask me why 2045. I'm not 100% sure, but it could possibly have to do with a lot of historical facts that I found, research that I found that I added in the documentary, that they've been talking about this for a long, long, long time. I mean, back to prior to Tartaria Kingdom, times. I found articles and clippings and things like that. And I added something in the documentary that I found. But the year 2045 happens coincidentally to also be the United Nations 100-year anniversary of their forming. So I don't feel like that's a coincidence. I feel like everything has a reason. And the technical singularity, the actual convergence, the merging, the moment in time when technology surpasses humans is already close to upon us. Artificial general intelligence, AGI, is right around the corner. And for people to think that it's not, I feel like they just are living in denial. They just don't want to see the writing on the wall, I guess. I don't know. I feel like it's better to know what's coming. I'm very much a prepper. Like I like to prevent. I work in prevention area. So
what used to be called survivalists now are called, used to be called survivalist. Now it's prepper. But
I feel like, but even as a mother, like I could see my son when he's playing, right?
Yeah.
I can forgive if he's about to slip and fall and get hurt because of what he's doing. And that's how I feel about a lot of this stuff. I can see exactly where it's heading and where it's going. And between the ESG policies and the zero trust policies that they're enacting in corporations all over the earth, between BRICS about to come out with their new digital currency next month now, and everything else going the way it is, I personally don't feel like there's much more time that we will have left before it all comes to a head. I really don't feel like it is. So, and I think they've warned us enough. They've told us with Cyber Polygon and with everything else exactly what they're planning to do. So it shouldn't be a surprise.
Get ready. And Libby, if people want to interact with you, engage with you, follow you, what are the best ways? Instagram?
Instagram would be one of the ways. I'm really not on there very much anymore because my pages are so severely shadow banned and it's so hard to try and start over and over and over. I have a lot of information on Telegram. I'm focusing a lot on Patreon. The solution and putting a lot of stuff on there that people will actually be able to use, like state constitution links and all sorts of prepper resources, because people talk about it, but there's a lot out there and you can get really lost really quick. So I feel like people just need to get connected and get plugged in like quickly, because we don't have all that much time left.
I'll put your Patreon link below. Really appreciate this.
Great. Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. You guys talking.
This was great.